Chris, and your team for inviting Sandra to come and present here to CESA members and perhaps other people in the audience. We are always honored to come and talk to stakeholders, our service providers, key role players in the industry such as CESA and their members in general in the consulting fraternity and the contractors. So yeah, after that presentation given by David, which paints a really bleak picture, it just highlights the need that all entities such as Sandral and everyone else that is in the space of providing infrastructure, they need to do all that is humanly possible to invest every cent and get projects started, create more jobs, and collectively their efforts will maybe to an extent change the picture if it all works like that. Thank you for the introduction given, Chris. Yes, the focus of our presentation here will mainly be just to highlight what the Northern region or Sandral is about, but mainly work done in the Northern region or investments as we have approved budget for and will be rolling out currently and going forward. Just summarize will be just to say Sandral's Northern region. Next will be our expenditure projections, be it current and future projects, some summarized version thereof. And key to it, as we all know, is Sandral's transformation policy, what it entails, broad scope thereof, and what has been achieved to date in terms of implementing the transformation policy. Just some of the challenges that we experience on the ground, mainly in terms of project delivery, what interventions we're looking at or have been implementing so far or looking at implementing going forward. And then part of the session's Q&A. So just a brief highlight of Sandral Northern region. Sandral Northern region consists of 4 provinces, as many of you may be aware, but some may not, being Gauteng, where both of our offices, the regional office is based, and the head office that consists of 705 kilometers roughly. But the big part thereof is the GFIP network, which is the busiest in the country and famous for the e-toll project, of course. But yeah, that is the main infrastructure we have here. And then we have Northwest Province. We have about 2,600 kilometers there. Limpopo Province, one of our biggest network in the Northern region, and then Mpumalanga with 2,400. So just highlights is the total road network. Projects that Sandral Northern region delivered on being the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project. Major roads that are in there being the N1 from Gauteng all the way to the Bay Bridge border, which traverses largely the province of Limpopo and being one of our busiest routes, major corridors in terms of freight and light traffic volume. The N2 heading into Mpumalanga all the way to KZN and beyond. The N12 mainly in Mpumalanga and Northern Cape. N4 that runs from Pretoria up to Komatipoort, and the N17 being the link from Gauteng to Swaziland, and the short section of the N3 up to the Free State border. So see there that these are the major roads that Northern Region takes care of in terms of maintaining and implementing infrastructure rehabilitation projects. Now, currently, both in Limpopo province and Mpumalanga, we have a major project being the Moloto Road Development Corridor. That is on the go at this stage, and it's got different phases. The early stages of they've been completed already, and some are in planning, and work is going out there both for contractors and some to the consultants or consulting. Yeah. And the N1 that I mentioned earlier in Limpopo province, a big part of it is consulting work that is out on tender at this stage, or evaluation that went out early this year. That is the dualing of the N1 toll road from Kranskop, those who know Kranskop toll plaza, all the way to Polokwane, and other projects that are happening there beyond Polokwane to town of Mosina. And in the Mpumalanga region, we have the N2, MLO to Pongola, that is projects that are currently at design stage and will be going to construction in the next 2 years or so. And then part of our freeway GFIP, we have a freeway management system that many of you would have observed in terms of CCTV cameras that are provided, emergency response, and so on, to enhance mobility and all of that. Yeah, this map is very sketchy, but these are the major corridors, as I've mentioned, the N1 running through there, through Limpopo, the N4 to from Gauteng to Komati Port, and the N17 here from Gauteng to Swaziland border. So yeah, next will be what we're looking at, expenditure projections that is in line, and we're doing all that we can from central side in terms of getting our capacity to ensure that we deliver on this investment, taking out the project, as David has already alluded, that Sandral is doing quite a lot of work. There's been a number of awards recently, mainly in our routine maintenance space, but there are some that are coming up in the CAPEX expenditure. So currently in this current financial year, as a region, Northern Region, we're looking at about 1.6 billion rands expenditure across all service providers, consultants, and contractors. 1.6 billion rands we're looking at there, and then we have about 1 billion rand on periodic maintenance. This is type of your results, type of work. We have special maintenance, sort of light rehabilitation, 500 million, and community projects. We're looking at about 260 million rands there. So that's just a picture, and same going into the next financial year, more or less the same figures, and more money into 2023 will be coming in, but currently that is the projection. So as you see that in terms of our routine maintenance or OPEX, that is the type of figures we're looking at there. So this is where our CAPEX works comes in terms of non-toll funding stream. Strengthening, currently we're looking at 500 million that we will be spending on current projects mainly, and improvements 1.7 billion, and new facilities about 1.3 billion, and a total of 3.6 billion. Is a ramp up forecast going into the next financial year. That is work that is mainly in design stage at this stage, and to be going out on award, on tender and possibly award into the early parts. Some of it is made up of work that is on the go already. We're looking at about 4.2 billion there that SANRAL will be investing in the northern region in terms of capex expenditure. Yeah. So this is our section for toll, which we all know, coupled with what the difficulties that David has alluded to earlier in terms of people having money in their pockets and the effects of the lockdown and recession that we have already been in, that slowed down economic activity. We had a problem already as things stand in terms of non-payment of e-tolls. So this sector or stream of funding is currently a challenge, as would have been had in recently. Our CEO was talking about it. So we have very decreased expenditure there, which we must still, in some cases, secure some of it in loans. But as things in terms of the project pipeline, that is the about 3.1 billion current financial year. This is expenditure that includes also running the toll operations that we currently have and maintenance of the toll routes, mainly the state toll routes. And to an extent, some of it will go into the special maintenance that must happen in those. The two projects that David mentioned earlier that are listed in the presidential special projects, that is the Musina Ring Road and Polokwane Ring Road. Those are currently underway already. They were stalled due to contractor, one of the main contractors that was there, Basil Reed, that had difficulties, but they have since been restarted and will be completed in the next year, early part of next year. Yeah. So in terms of capex expenditure there, we had, as I've mentioned, we had the lowest level in terms of toll roads. However, we are still investing, and as you can see, there'll be much more increase subject to us obtaining the funding in terms of the rollout of work on the N1 from transport to Polokwane, about 1.7 billion. That's the early stages of those projects hopefully coming through. So this is just a summary of the entire expenditure that I've explained there. So we're looking roughly as a region in about 6 billion rands total of expenditure in the non-toll space, and roughly 4.3 billion rands in the current financial year expenditure. Next slide. So yes, as I've mentioned earlier, in terms of transformation policy for those, some of you may have been to sessions that SANRAL has held previously, but the SANRAL has established a new transformation policy in order to put into effect its mandate on transformation, guided by the public procurement regulations of 2017 mainly. So the focus of the transformation policy is largely around ownership. It's basically to ensure that the construction sector transforms and provides more opportunities for previously disadvantaged entities in subcontracting or within their own ownership as well. One of the things that we are looking at is equitable access. So it's one of a limitation of a number of contracts per company, per province or nationally. That is still under review, although it was part of the policy, but was not implemented due to engagements that were there with yes, likes of SAFSEC and so on. But that is under review. It may be phased gradually. So one of the things we're looking at is equitable allocation of projects across CIDB grades, where we also, in our contracting space, are looking at bringing your grade 5s and 6 as main contractors. However, the other lower grades and so on of contractors is to then make sure that they participate in the subcontracting as well. So a lot of work has been put in place in relation to that. So there is also a need for balance of JVs and subcontracting. And through its contracting model, SANRAL is starting to have more say in the subcontracting in terms of how it must happen, its implementation, oversight, and in having control there in terms of PLCs and the engineers or consultants having an oversight role, as I said, there in line with SANRAL's policies. So there's also a drive to review the project packaging, size, duration, and budget. All these fit into the procurement policy. One of the key things, as we are aware, that we're working with communities, and communities make demands these days, rightfully so, in terms of what must be done on projects that will suit them and so on. So there's a drive to engage communities both in planning phase and implementation stages of the projects to ensure that as far as possible adjacent communities benefit, be it in terms of them providing materials or other skills that may be required on projects. Yeah. So one of the things is then supply chains to create space for Black business in rigid supply chains such as materials, equipment, and so on. That is the MOUs that SANRAL has initiated with the likes of Ballowworld and Bell, where they can assist the emerging contractors that want to acquire plant or having had contracts signed with SANRAL and so on. Yeah. Competition is also key, basically to create space for Black business, especially in our toll operations, and ensure that that sector is supported by SANRAL in terms of its transformation objectives. I won't go too much into this. So the policy has been in implementation since 2018. There's been a gradual increase in terms of participants with increased Black ownership. Just highlights the RRM and resale consultants are limited to EMEs and QSEs based on value. There's increase in new consultants or entrants working for SANRAL that we have seen, especially in the recent round of routine maintenance tenders that SANRAL has put out and packaged them such that they fit in with its regulations or its policy. The 30% targeted enterprise that applies, I mean, that's common knowledge by now. And in terms of consulting, 30% targeted enterprise subcontract starts at 10 million for consultants. So if the work is 10 million, 33 million thereof should be subcontracted to a targeted enterprise, subject to it being feasible, of course. And one of the things is also to try and localize the work there. There's a requirement now that further 30% of that work should be from the province where the project is. Yeah, so that is some of the implementation phase or issues that we are going through. Just the summary of expenditure in terms of expenditure on Black compliant QSEs or EMEs is 70% currently, and about 17% on non-Black and non-compliant, that is EMEs or QSEs, about 11%. Yeah. So that is just a summary. I won't go too much into detail of the breakdown of that expenditure in values through the different categories. Yeah. Challenges that we are currently experiencing, as Sandra is commonly known, one is the issue of business forums or associations that are causing violent disruptions of project work stoppages. This has been at the level of cabinet, interventions are being looked at there. And I mean, all of you in the audience that are involved with the project would have experienced or know how this is an ongoing problem that the sector must resolve together with law enforcement agency, together with government. It's an unnecessary disruption. In some cases, yes, there may be grounds for it, but the actions are not justifiable in terms of stopping projects and so on. I'll talk to the interventions that we as Sandral are looking at or have been implementing in the last 3 years or so to try and mitigate this. So yeah, coupled with that, indeed, is the demand for localization that is not entirely according to the law, where people demand that work should be restricted to their areas, be it their wards or region, entirely, which is not what the regulations allow for, but we do make provision within the regulations to give preference to locals, but to an extent, some of the stoppages and so on or challenges we have is either entities or individuals that make this demand to the extent that they affect progress on our projects, and as a result, slow down expenditure, which is not what we want at this stage. Yeah, one of our challenges is we have a huge procurement backlog. As some of you may know, in the early stages, we had an issue with regulations in terms of how we implement the 30% subcontracting that went back and forth between Sandral and National Treasury. That has been resolved now, but the backlog is in the process of...
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, next slide, I'll be done. Just other challenges, David has already alluded to extensively, COVID-19 and lockdown disruptions. I think he gave a very, very detailed picture there. Yeah, and as a result, you know, we can all expect there could be potential budget reallocation in the medium term or into the future regarding COVID-19 intervention. Estimate is a possible 10% cut in terms of the budget at this stage. Yeah, just some of the interventions in terms of the challenges we have is the issue of intensified stakeholder management processes that Sandral has embarked on and acquired a lot of capacity to ensure that we take care of this. Since we are now in this territory, things are no longer as easy as before, but it's an ongoing process. We are implementing a 14-point plan, which has requirements in terms of how our service providers must engage with communities or structures in the communities to ensure that we have a transparent process and mitigate the risk of disruptions and so on. There's ongoing consultation with stakeholders like your CESA and everyone regarding transformation policy. And where need be, we implement changes to make sure it all works for all of us. We've since increased our capacity in the procurement unit to clear the backlog that is ongoing. And regarding COVID-19, there's a task force established, very much the same as all the other entities, which has enabled us to continue with business even during lockdown, except in lockdown level 5. As David has said, some of the tenders were being awarded already. That is part of what we have been doing, and it's all in place now. Yeah, thank you very much. That's a story of Sandra. Thank you, Chris.